Hi, Paul. How are you?
John, how are you? It's good to see you.
I'm doing well. Welcome to the show. It's Paul Reavlin from Revgear Sports. I've been buying stuff from you guys for I don't know how long, at least 25 years. Make the best kick shields and tombstones and tie pads, and I love your fight gear as well. So super awesome
Awesome.
to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I mean, this summer coming up in July, it's our 30-year anniversary, so it's pretty cool to say we have done this for 30 years. Or
Wow,
30 years
congratulations.
since I quit my day job, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yep. Yeah, I heard rumors of when you started, you were delivering heavy bags out of your car.
Yes, it's true. It's true. I did deliver heavy bags out of my car. I had a black Mustang 5.0 was a sweet car. I miss it now, but and I would deliver heavy bags. Now, you could only fit two, maybe three at a time, so that was tricky. But yeah, in the early days of Revgear, I did a lot of door to door. I was doing door to door at martial arts schools around the city, and it was hotter than hell. And I was in a black convertible Mustang roasting, and so that was fun. Yeah, driving across town 45 minutes across LA to meet with people, only for them
Yeah.
not to show up for their appointments. So yeah, that
Yeah.
was good
Uh,
times.
yeah, some things never change. But yeah, that is amazing. What inspired you to start Revgear?
Well, I was an accountant. I mean, technically, I guess I'm still an accountant, but I was an accountant and I hated it. I absolutely hated being an accountant. Um, I think I spent a number of years after school getting certified, becoming a CPA, and I think the day that they came to me and said, um, "Okay, it's January 1st. You're going to work nights and weekends from here on out until April 15. Everyone should just plan on working nights and weekends and no days off and no vacation time." I think that was the day I decided this isn't the good fit for me.
This episode is brought to you by ClearSky. One of the biggest lessons I've learned after more than 30 years in the martial arts and self defense industry is that great programs aren't built on techniques alone. They're built on community, pressure tested training, and instructors who understand how to keep students learning, growing for the long haul. At ClearSky Training, we help instructors, school owners, and serious students build better systems, teach more effectively, and develop skills that hold up under pressure. To learn more about our courses, seminars, consulting, and instructor development programs, visit ClearSky Training. Yeah.
I ended up, when I started my own company, I started Revgear, I ended up working way more hours than I ever did or would as an accountant. But that's okay because it was doing something that I really love. But look, I was an accountant with a Krav Maga hobby at the time. I was very, very into Krav Maga. Um, and I figured I wanted to start my own company. I started to make equipment for the training we were doing. Um, and that's what I was passionate about. There were just, I was like anybody else, I was getting kicked in the side by guys that were much bigger than me. And I hated the way the pads felt. And I hated the way certain equipment fit. And I just decided, this isn't rocket science. This is something I can do, that I'm passionate about. And, and so that started the Odyssey. I was still working as an accountant while I worked on the business in the background. And then ultimately, at some point, I quit my job cold turkey and just started selling Rev gear from my bedroom.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. It's that kind of story. I started in my bedroom. I did door to door, drove door to door. I sold. I went door to door at martial arts schools. I did all of that. I made a ton of phone calls. I mean, I learned to sell. I learned everything about the business, start to finish. I learned how to manufacture. I learned all kinds of things. So um, it's a story of the American dream. Someone who can turn their hobby into their career. That is really what I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you did everything. I mean, I think that's, a lot of people start a business and they don't really know what's going on, and they have other people doing it where you did it from the ground up. That's amazing.
In 1994, I mean, technically the company started in 1996, but I started working on the company in 1994, when we started to make samples and I was testing things and deciding what our first products would be. But back then things were so different. I mean, we weren't even emailing. Emailing wasn't even a big thing back then. I mean, the way you did business was you made a catalog, you sent out the catalog, and you made follow-up calls. There weren't a lot of email things happening. The internet really was just starting to become a thing. I think at that time, if I could do it differently, I probably would have done it a little differently. But at that point, I think Yahoo was starting to make template shopping carts. I think there were just things like that just starting, and so when you see how much has changed since then, it's pretty incredible. I mean, launching and marketing a product is 10 times harder now than it ever used to be. Even though with all the technology and everything, you'd think it would be easier. It's a million times harder now than it ever was then.
Yeah, I know sometimes, just trying to create a membership and get it out there and advertise it takes so much work these days. It's funny how we have all this technology, and from industry to industry, it takes longer to get it going.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you've done it long enough, you've been through 3 industrial revolutions. I mean, we went through computers, then there was phones and the internet, and now it's, AI. So it's like everything's changed rapidly so quickly in these 30 years that we've been doing it. But it's still fun to be in business. I still love what I do, and I still work day and night, but it's just different. It's totally different to launch a product now. It's not just taking some pictures and making a catalog. Now it's amazing what you have to do to get a product off the ground now.
Yeah. What was your first product at Revgear?
So there were 4 products that I launched with. The first one was the Tombstone pad, which most people are familiar with. And that's a whole nother story in itself, how that came about. But the Tombstone, I also launched a kick shield, which we still sell today. Both those products have been copied a million times over the years. So a Tombstone, a kick shield. We had a glove that we called the finger-free glove, which was probably one of the earliest MMA gloves, a precursor to MMA gloves as you know them now. Yep. But it was totally open on. It just had a pad over here that bent over with your knuckles, and it just had some finger loops. And so, you could do all the things you could do with an MMA glove. You could protect your hands while you're punching, but still grab and things. And then, and we had a shin guard. The shin guard was made for training with shoes, because in Krav Maga we were training in tennis shoes. So with some help, and the people I was training with, we designed a shin guard that had a pad that went over your instep of your shoe, covered your shoelaces. So it had an instep protector, but didn't have any straps that went underneath your shoe. So we had, 2 shields, a shin guard, and I guess an MMA glove at the time, which we call the finger-free glove. Those are the first 4 products we launched with.
Oh, wow. I didn't know the shin guard. I mean, I love the shin guard for shoes. It's kind of funny of what, you tell us, and some of the things I've been in with you over the years is, the owner wearing that product. John Whitman wears a t-shirt and all of a sudden, it gets a lot of purchases. The MMA, what is it? The Defender shin guard. I was wearing those for a while, and actually we had a pair that I had bought from you guys on a special on the shoe shins. I'm like, man, nobody will buy these. So I just started wearing them again, going, well, how am I going to sell the rest of these things? And I love them. They're great. I mean, that's what I started originally, Krav Maga, wearing those. And then, that the heavy hitter Defender came out, and, that's a great shin guard as well. But, it's kind of hard to wear with shoes. You got that strap going over.
Well, the issue was always that you could wear, there were plenty of shin guards, obviously there still are, obviously, but the straps went under the shoes and the straps would break, and you'd have an instep thing that was flapping up and down. It was kind of weird. So, look, I still sell that shin guard today. I still make it here in the US today. And it's awesome. It's cool that we can still do some of that stuff. It's just, interesting to see how it goes. And yes, martial arts instructors and owners are the biggest influencers in the gym. Forget whatever happens outside on the internet. You guys are the biggest influencers in the school, hands down. Whatever you guys do, your students want to do.
Yeah, that's true. I guess, what do you think school owners should kind of stop doing that they're doing that you're seeing something you guys correct a lot or try to help? I know you guys really help people with their pro shops. What's a big mistake school owners make with pro shops?
Well, the biggest mistake people make is that they don't get involved with merchandise at all because they're worried about things like inventory. They're afraid of charging their customers certain prices, and they just let their customers go shop on Amazon and other places or at the sporting goods store. And it may seem harmless, and it may seem like they feel like they've avoided the problem, but it actually causes more damage to their business. Um, the main reason is that most people don't realize it, but the benefit of selling merchandise is obviously there's a lot of benefits, safety and making some money. But the real thing is you want people using the gear that you've chosen for your curriculum. And most people don't really even know what's going to happen in the curriculum until you teach them. So they shouldn't be making gear decisions. But more importantly is that I think if you study any student over a lifetime in your school, if they're buying the merchandise from you, they will train longer. And I know it seems, that may not seem the most intuitive, but the more products they buy from you, the longer they train. And if you let them go train other places, they tell other people, let them buy things other places. They'll tell all the people around them they can buy things at other places. And you really don't have much control over what's going on in your school. But most importantly is, if you got an extra month of tuition, 2 months of tuition from every student, that is a way bigger number than any merchandise you will sell. And so it's really important that you show them that you're the creator of the curriculum and this is the gear that you've chosen for the curriculum. And that's why they need to get it from you. I mean, you guys have all taught martial arts for many, many years. And most people walk in a martial arts school, have never trained a day in their life. So they don't have any idea of what they need, and that's up to you to tell them and show them.
Yeah, people tend to buy the cheapest stuff. Cut corners, or I actually had a guy a couple of years ago that brought in a pair of gloves. He said, are these okay? And they were antique leather. I mean, had to be from the 50s. And I told him I would trade him a pair of brand new Revgear gloves for those. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I want those for my office. They'll look great on my wall. And then he thought about it for a second. Then, no, I'll just buy a pair of gloves. But that's one thing I see is people, it's really crappy. I mean, a lot of times I'll tell people that like, hey, I've got gloves already. I'm like, well, it's going to create a problem, but let me check them out. And half the time they're crappy. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll spar with you. You can wear my Revgear gloves and I'll wear your gloves. And then they kind of second thought that. I'm like, your gloves have no padding in them. I'm like,
yeah, well, look,
you're hitting other people. It's protecting your hand, but there's a degree that you're protecting the other person with that padding.
I mean, look, there's things that they don't know. We probably shouldn't expect them to know because they're just starting out or what have you. But I think, look, at the end of the day, if people, we help martial arts school owners every day work through this. We help them. If you build the products into the program, in other words, if when they sign up for training from you, all those things are included, then most of this goes away. In other words, if you build the cost and the profit or whatever you want to sell into your tuition that you charge, then most of these problems go away. People will have the products you want, of the safety levels you want, all those things. And sometimes that can be complicated, and I understand that. But we work with school owners every day to help them figure their way through this. So we're always available to do that. So. It's not glamorous, but that's what we do.
Yeah, no, I mean, you guys are always super helpful. I mean, I've been dealing with Todd forever. I mean, I don't know what number employee
Todd was employee number one, and he was actually my roommate when I started the business. We were roommates. He worked for an advertising agency, And at one point he separated from them, and I said, why don't you come work for me? And he was employee one. He's done every job in the building. So, often he remembers things that I don't remember. So like if you're ever working with Revgear and you end up on the phone with Todd, he knows more than I do. Often he'll remind me, don't you remember we did X, Y, and Z? So he's a rock star. You get lucky enough to spend time with him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I love to, it's that whole customer service thing, right? Too. If you get a bad experience, I mean, your people, I mean, I deal almost exclusively with him, but from here and there, whenever I have to talk, if he's away or out sick and I need to make an order, everybody is super helpful. And that's what, I think is such an important part of any business, but I think, keys into you and the success of Revgear.
Awesome. I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Well, I really wanted to talk about that email that you guys started sending out. And it was something when I bumped into you out at John Whitman's place for his advanced prep weekend, was that email on kids quitting and the parents really being the ones that quit. I thought your take on that was great because it was something we talk about a lot here, and seeing it come from you, it was super awesome and just kind of reinforced things that we had been talking about in our marketing of the gym. Because again, I wish I could go back to the days on Nantucket Island when I could put an ad in the newspaper and an ad on the town bulletin board, and you called your marketing done.
Yeah. Well, okay. So we have I recently started sending out different kinds of emails. We've been sending out emails about different products and stuff for years, right? But I just recently starting out certain content just for school owners that I think is helpful. Look, I've traveled for 30 years to different martial arts schools. There isn't a lot that I haven't seen, but I like to share some of the information that I see that's, I think, helpful for people. Totally. Sometimes it's related to gear, sometimes it's unrelated. In this case, the topic you're talking about was that we basically said that the kids aren't quitters, the parents are the quitters, right? And so, when you're running a martial arts school, what we realize, we spend all this time training on how to sign up new students, how to teach better classes, how to keep students longer, all these things. And I realized, I was at a seminar recently for martial arts school owners, a business seminar, and the topic came up that, the students aren't the quitters, the parents are the quitters. And I realized that we don't do enough training of the parents. And I don't mean like parents need to be on the floor training. Well, of course they do. We want them training. We want them training as families. We want them training with their kids too. We want them as students also. But what I mean by this is, we don't train the parents how to deal with the kids who are in martial arts, right? So when my kids were in martial arts, they would come home. They would come to me all the time and say, I want to quit. There were a lot of days they didn't want to go to martial arts class, and you get to the point where, as they get older, their opinions get bigger, right? And so you can't just say, that's nice, get in the car. And so you have to basically know what to say to them. I used to say to my kids, look, they would say, I want to quit martial arts. I say, okay, great, you can quit. And they would look at me like, what are you talking about? I say, you can quit when you get a black belt. When you make black belt, you can quit. And their head would tilt sideways. They look at me and they didn't know what to say, and they would turn around and leave. You walk off. And so at the end of the day, I would always tell them, yeah, you can quit. You can quit at black belt. And so it was in their head that they weren't allowed to quit martial arts until they were black belt. And so that gave them, then they would start doing the math. Well, how long is it going to take for me to make black belt? What do I got to do to make black belt? And, look, that may or may not be the perfect answer, but I realize that a lot of the parents I see around me in the gallery, or their kids would say, I want to quit. And they didn't know what to say. And so ultimately the kids will wear on them and they'll let the kids quit just so they make the problem go away. And I realized at that point that's where the training is missing. And then it could be something simple like, when you intro a new student or you are touring a new prospect, you can simply say to the parents, look, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, during the course of training, your child's training here, the topic of quitting is going to come up. It's almost certain to come up. It could be one day from now, it could be 3 years from now, but at some point your kid may bring up that they want to quit. Now, at that point, you just share information about, we have kids that have gone on to go to these colleges. We have kids that graduate from high school, college, all these things. They've hit all these goals in their life, and most of it happens, or a lot of it happens, because they didn't quit in martial arts, because martial arts will teach them how to have focus and discipline and be more successful in school and life and all these things. And so when your student, or I'm sorry, when your child comes to you and says, I want to quit, then you should be prepared on what to say to them. And at that point, we should train the parents on what to say to their kids. We can give them some ideas. We can even role play it with them if we want. Occasionally a parent, right? I'm not a martial arts instructor. I just work with a million of them. And I've seen it enough times where a lot of parents come to the martial arts instructor and say, my kid wants to quit. What do I do? And that's great. That's awesome, because then you at least have a chance to address it. But how many times does that come up that the parent doesn't address it? How many times does the parent not say anything to you and ultimately just lets their kid quit and move on? And that's the end of it. You lost a student, you lost a family. And so I really think we just need to put some thought into bringing it up with the parents proactively, telling them that's going to happen, and teaching them what to say. Some of them have the courage to say it, and some of them won't. Some of them will never say it anyway, but at least you have the shot at teaching them and sharing with them and telling them that when this comes up, come talk to me, or here's what you should say. At least that way they're prepared, right? Because a lot of times they're not prepared and they don't know what to do. So there you go. That's my theory about it.
Yeah, I love it. We revamped our members website and trying to add a bunch of tools on there for parents and walking them through the journey. And it's just, now it's like getting them on there. And this podcast, I think, would be great to, throw a little clip in there for them to watch and listen. It's kind of the thing. Tony Morrison, I had him on a couple of weeks ago. I think it just aired this weekend. He had a couple little things on there. They're good little tidbits for parents that aren't martial artists, and knowing how to deal with that. Because I think it's, definitely a hard thing. I mean, it's hard for me to get the parents on the members site and, get a little bit more involved in their kids' activity, where, it's not as high maintenance as going to tournaments every weekend for, sports and all that stuff. But we've tried to really throw a lot of tools at them, and I'm going to expand on what I teach or try to give to parents when they first come in and sign up, because usually I'll tell them just a little in that sign up meeting. When they want to quit, just have them come talk to me.
Yeah, let them come bring it up. Let them come bring it up with Sensei. That's it. Yeah. It's interesting, with this point you just mentioned. Last week I just sent an email out about community, and the community that your martial arts school is its own community. Often when the parents talk about martial arts, they talk about it as an activity. They talk about baseball and basketball as activities. They talk about martial arts as an activity. But the truth is that if you do a good job of building a community, then it becomes much harder for anyone to quit, because people will quit activities, but they don't necessarily quit communities. You know what I mean? Because if you're quitting a community, you're going to think twice about the people you're connected with, the people you're leaving. It's not just about, I'm not going to go to martial arts class anymore. It's like, it's all these people I'm not going to see anymore, and this family that I've joined. And so a lot of running martial arts school is about, the success is about building this community. I don't think people think about it enough, because they just do a lot of things intuitively. You corner fighters, you go to events and tournaments and all that stuff with the families and all that stuff. Those are things you do for your community, and you build your community. But if you cognizantly think about, what am I going to do this month to get people engaged in my community, engaged in our family, beyond just some of these other things, that will help you with retention also, because people are less inclined to quit when they're part of your community. And I don't mean just like the local community. I mean your school community. That is its own tribe,
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are seeking that out too. I feel like they want to belong to something, and The
Absolutely.
school really becomes a part of them. And, one thing, when I'm asking for referrals, so many times what my members say to me is, all my friends are here. And I'm like, well, that's great, but don't you have any other friends? Like, I started recently to tell them, like, well, talk to a stranger, please. Let them know if all your friends are here. Invite strangers in. Um, but it's always nice to hear, when they're, all my
It's
friends are here, all the
it's an
people I like.
amazing look. It's an amazing selling point that I don't know. I don't know if school owners do the best job of selling it. I mean, but you know, the people I went through black belt with, my black belt exam, are some of my best friends on the planet. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I'm certain that people you've trained with and that people that others in our industry have trained with some of those are their best friends on the planet, the best connections. These are people, you go through war together, you go through training together, you go through the ups and downs together, and that's an amazing feeling. And I don't think we share that with the people we're signing up. I could be wrong, but I think school owners can do a better job of sharing the bond that people are going to make with other people in the school as a selling point, right? When you're trying to sign somebody up. I just don't, that's a real critical point. It's like without martial arts, I mean, it would be for me just be a huge chunk of my life that I would have missed out on, and that would be missing because there's so many important people that I know from martial arts that are just great friends to me and a great part of my life, and that's, I mean, think about that. If we can bottle that and communicate that when we're selling, I think people would be a lot more apt to just sign up because they could see those benefits.
absolutely. Yeah. You saying that's how I found Taekwondo originally. Was I was out of football in high school and was looking for something to do, and that's what drew me in and changed my life. But you're getting involved with people and testing and doing all that stuff and hard sparring with people. It's a great bond, and people are very close that way, going through all that training. And everything you said is just so absolutely true, of the friendships and everything you build through the martial arts. And it can continue after you're a competitive athlete. How long can you do that? Martial arts is a great avenue to get into and kind of replace that when you're done with your quote athletic career.
Yeah, I would assume most people get into martial arts because it is an activity, but they stay much longer because of the friendships and the community and the relationships they make, and obviously the challenges, the physical challenges that come with it. But I mean, there's so much more than just the martial art itself when you start training. That's most people would never know that until you're in it, I would assume.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. Even I just think, I was 19, and all the guys in their 30s or 40s or even older, that kind of mentored me up through. It kind of gave a, great outlet for that 19, 20-year-old kid to be surrounded by a bunch of, dedicated martial artists that have been doing it longer than you. It was a really great thing and a great opportunity. I wish more people would, get into.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Uh, Well, awesome. I
Well,
think that's a great place to end, Paul, taking a lot of your time up. I really appreciate you being on the show, and we'll drop in the description. If nobody doesn't know about Revgear Sports, we'll throw your
hey,
um,
look, everyone check
website
out
in there.
revgear.com, right? So,
Yeah,
look, over the last few years, we've added a ton of product lines. We do all kinds of new things for martial arts schools and martial arts school owners and for people who train at every level of MMA, BJJ, Muay Thai, Krav Maga, on and on. So, I want to encourage everybody to check out our website at revgear.com and just reach out. We will communicate with you. We love talking to our clients and stuff like that. So,
awesome. Yeah, they got great customer support. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks a lot, Paul. Have a good one.
thank you, John.
Thank you. All right, I don't know how to shut it off, but I appreciate it. I'll shoot you a text when it's gonna go live.
Awesome. All right. Well, let me know if you need anything else.
Okay, I appreciate it. Take
Thank you,
care.
John. All right. Bye
All
bye.
right, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with something I say all the time: train more, suck less. And sometimes more directly, just suck less. When people read that shirt, they laugh, they're confused, they kind of take a second to figure it out. But honestly, that's my philosophy for life. I'm always trying to get better. I don't think I'm the best at anything. I work hard, I train hard, I try to get just a little bit better all the time. To me, train more, suck less means doing hard things on purpose. It means getting comfortable being uncomfortable. It means embracing failure, learning from it, and getting back up when things don't go your way. Because the truth is, nobody starts out good at anything. You get stronger by struggling. You get tougher by overcoming adversity. You get better by refusing to quit. So stop waiting till you feel ready. Stop looking for the perfect plan. And for the love of God, don't be a wuss. Train your body, train your mind, train your skills, and keep showing up. And if you're an instructor, coach, martial artist, or serious student looking to build real-world self-defense skills, instructor development, and pressure-tested training systems, check out ClearSky.training. That's where we're building the future of practical self-defense education. Thanks for spending your time with us today, and until next time, keep training, keep learning, and remember, train more, suck less.